So
Sing.
you can say anything now. I'm not.
I did
we are recording, but I usually don't use this
Okay.
beginning. Welcome to the Creative Ticket podcast, brought to you by Pacific Video. I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast has been originally created, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people listening today. I am Geraldo Rodriguez, Sydney-based actor, writer, and director, and on this podcast I'll talk to artists from all over the world about their craft, their careers, inspirations, and insights. If you are an arts fanatic like myself, make sure to follow and subscribe so you won't miss out on new episodes. Madelyn Beaufils is an Australian singer and songwriter based in Sydney. Her single Goddess is out on Spotify, and she also has a taste for Brazilian music. Welcome, Madelyn. It's an honor to have you on the show today.
Oh, thank you, Geraldo. Hello, anybody listening today?
Nice. So, my first question is, how did you start your musical career? What made you pursue a career as a musician?
You know, I've been asked that a few times, and I never know where the exact point is. But there's two core memories, and one of them's in primary school. I remember joining the choir, and there was this moment where even though I was really young, I was like, I think I can sing a little bit better than the rest of the people here. Like, I think I'm in tune. Like, I actually really enjoy doing this. And they gave me a part in one of the songs to sing alone on the stage. So it started from there. It was my first performance in like a primary school choir. And yeah, they gave me a few verses by myself. And I was, how do you say it? I was ignited. I was like enlightened, or I loved the lights and people watching and the stage. So that was one of my first memories that I'm thinking, yes, I got into it then, but it wasn't until high school that it became like, this is what I want to do. This is what I love. And I was about 13 years old, and we had one music teacher that was very much into orchestral band, and a lot of the students found it very, very boring. So I was kind of giving up on music. I was like, this is so boring. Like, I don't want to learn violin. I don't want to learn, saxophone. It was very orchestral. And then we had a sub teacher come in, and he looked at my name one time. He said, "That's really interesting. My partner's name spelled the same way." And from that moment, I don't know what happened, but I took a liking to him. And one day he had to mark me singing, and I put no effort in. I was like, don't even like music. And he stopped the whole class. And so I was really young when this, 13-year-old moment where you're like, I had to sing, here we go. He's like, "I would have given you a 21 out of 20. I didn't know you could sing. You have to do this. Keep doing this. Don't ever stop. Hasn't anyone told you about this before?" I was like, no one supported me before. He's like, "Yes, you're going to get on those stages. Next week, you're going to learn a song. You're going to do this. You're going to do that." And he ended up being a full-time teacher there. And from then on, I just became obsessed with music. Like, it kind of took that one person to believe in me for me to go, "Oh my God, I really love this." Like, I didn't know I was that good. I didn't know I could, not even that good, but, I didn't know it was something that made people go, "Wow, like, you should keep pursuing that." So did that answer the question, Gerardo? Sorry.
Absolutely, yes. And I'm thinking, how did you go about music in those early days? Did you just listen to it and you could instantly figure out the tune, the rhythm, because I find that's quite a challenge, even more so for a child, right?
Yeah. I was really big into 60s and 70s music, and before, the Spotify days, we would just have this big, one of my father's friends, he'd bring over all these CDs, and we'd upload them to Windows Media Player or whatever it was, and I'd just be listening to them on repeat, all the bands, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Carole King. So a lot of my, I guess how I learnt songs back at that age was I was just listening on repeat, on repeat, on repeat to so many songs, and then you'd Google the lyrics back then and try and sing along and learn it at the same time. But learning guitar, that probably, I think, was a thing that made me become more independent in learning songs at that age. As soon as I learned a few chords, it became something I could independently, like someone could give me a sheet with the lyrics and I would just be able to play the songs. So that was really nice. Something my teacher gave me as well.
And did you learn guitar by yourself, or did you take lessons? How was your approach to the instrument?
I'm talking this teacher up a lot because he was a very significant part of my musical beginnings, my foundations. He sat with me one time and was like, do you want to learn 20 bar chords in 30 seconds? And he showed me how to put my fingers, and then for a major chord and a minor chord. And he's like, just keep practicing that. And I don't know if it's because I wanted to like please him, like do well for my teacher, but I literally went home and would practice these bar chords so my fingers had blisters on them. So yeah, I learned from him showing me a few things, and then a lot of self-practice. Like I never had proper guitar lessons, just those moments that a teacher shows you something in class.
Wow, that's really something amazing. And in 2014, you participated in an album by John Louth at Moorbank High in an initiative by Songmakers. How was that experience like? Is that the same teacher you were talking about?
So the same teacher, I'm sure he would have found that. I believe that program's run through APRA. I'm not 100% sure. He was really good at finding those kind of things to help develop the students with music. So he got the people to come there. It was a producer, and it was also an artist called Ray Thistlethwaite who plays in the band Thirsty Merc. They're an Australian rock band that sing a very famous song called Summertime. And even Ray Thistlethwaite came to the school, and we got to collaborate with them there. Sorry.
And how was that experience like, having a professional musician with a proper career coming to your school and participating in an album with you as a kid?
Yeah. I was really nervous at the time because I loved Thirsty Merc. I used to sing some of those songs, and then you have the lead singer. It was my first, like, oh my God. And then you learn they're just chill, real people too. It was a nice, humbling moment. But the way it worked was they came and they said, does anyone have any songs? And I was starting to write songs in the background, and I showed them one of my songs. It was called It's Never Too Late. And then Ray and the other producer guy that I forgot his name, sorry, they helped clean it up a little bit. And then I was in a band in high school, and they gave their twist to it as well, which was a bit more rock or heavier rock. I wouldn't call it metal, but it was a heavy rock influence. And it was such an incredible experience, seriously, because I was just me and my guitar writing songs before. And you think it sounds good and you don't have any bigger vision. Well, at that age, I didn't have any bigger vision of like, oh, we'll put drums and bass and keyboard and all these elements. But then you've got like your band, those people helping you, my teacher as well, and get to do the entire recording experience. It was my first recording experience. It blew my mind. I keep using that word, electrified me, but that's the feeling, it gave you that like, wow, we can turn like our thoughts and our little scribbles into like this whole ensemble, this whole song. And it was the first time I got to see one start to finish. And our band went crazy after that. Like we just wanted to like write more. It was a high school band, nothing really, kicked off really big, but we were writing more, we were wanting to produce more, we were trying to get out there. It was an incredible experience.
Amazing. I went to one of your shows. It was actually, I think, your graduation concert, and I was really, really impressed. Not only by the quality of your voice and your music, but also because of the range. So you sang from Bob Dylan to Led Zeppelin to Belchior, who is a Brazilian singer songwriter. How do you choose your repertoire? How do you choose the songs you're going to sing? Do you have a specific taste for what you want to sing, or is it just what moves your heart?
I would love to say that I'm very organized and have a way of choosing songs, but it's what you said. It's definitely, it would be from the heart. Like, yeah, anything that calls. That's why it's always been hard to tell people when they say, "Oh, what's your style?" I'm like, my style's everything. Like, I just whatever feels good, which isn't the best way to market yourself, I suppose, but it could be if you look at it from the other end. But yeah, anything that moves me, anything that makes me feel good when I sing it. I love putting or stepping into a character, and I feel different songs, they allow you to tap into those different characters. So like Led Zeppelin, I feel like I'm back in the 70s, like on the stage like a rock god, and then I might sing Adele, and it might be a more sensitive song, so you get to be that more sensitive character and part of yourself. You get to really feel into the different archetypes, if you want to call it that.
And you've taken drama classes as well, right? Does
Yeah,
that
recently.
influence the way you sing? Did you find that there's a difference when you approach songs as an actor would?
um yeah, so I would say a few, well, not a few, like quite years ago, I would just go out and wing it in terms of my performance and see what happens. Um, After doing a few drama or acting classes, you start to look deeper on the character, which is something that actors are meant to do. You're meant to go into their world. So now it's that same sort of outlook on a song in a way. You want to go into that artist's world of what they were feeling, especially as you mentioned, like the Brazilian music. In the beginning, I didn't know what I was singing about. So you'd study the artist and how they might perform on the stage. You might study some of the lyrics to see actually what it's about and go into that character's world or that theme, and then try to portray that the best you can, as opposed to just winging it on the stage, if that makes sense.
Yes. And you speak fluent Portuguese.
I wouldn't
And
say
you
fluent.
have, oh yeah, your Portuguese is excellent. And you have a connection to Brazilian music. You sing a few songs in Portuguese. How did that connection start?
I cannot lie, I was 100% having a Brazilian boyfriend. I didn't know anything of Brazil or Brazilian music. I only knew of samba music and samba dancing. And one of my first dates with my partner, he showed me a song by a Brazilian artist called Caetano Veloso. And it was actually a song in English, and they mixed a bit of Portuguese in there. And I was like, oh my goodness, what is this? That's amazing.
Which
Um,
song was that?
it was called You Don't Know Me by
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Caetano
yeah.
Veloso. Yes. And that whole album is a mix, a blend of English and Portuguese songs. Yeah, my partner. He showed me, and then I guess I love Spotify for sometimes for this reason, is when you press the radio on a song, it will show you so many other songs, similar to that genre. And I started finding songs like Como Nossos Pais by Elis Regina, uh, Tom Jobim. I don't know how to say his name, and
That's
Tim
perfect.
Maia. All those. I think it's MBP. those artists. It was typical. I fell in love with the artists from the 60s and 70s of Brazil as well. Like I couldn't believe it that that was the genre that my brain went to automatically. But yeah, I cannot deny it was my partner, and I got very inspired by bossa nova music and samba, and then a lot of the MPP or MPB.
And
Yeah.
you've mentioned a few times the songs from the 60s and the 70s. And it's also a piece, a period of extreme creativity. And I also love the music from those days. Do you find that there was a special thing in the air, in the spirit of the time, that musicians were able to capture and to put it into music? Is that something you find that happened? Do you believe in that sort of new era of music and of humanity in a way?
Definitely. I wouldn't be able to tell you too much historically, but that time was a time of change. You know, it was a time of revolution. There was the drug revolution as well. I feel very drawn to it because of just how free people were to express themselves. And I created a lot of my artistic identity around that time in good and bad ways because I felt like artists just expressed authentically, if that makes sense. Um, Instead of being trained as singers or trained guitarists and they've done their years of studying to become this great thing, like a few musicians were in the 50s, or, you know, if you're an opera singer or if you hear somebody today that sings contemporary music, they might be trained. I loved the untamed raw vocals. I loved the jam aspect to writing songs that a lot of those blues or rock and roll type artists did. I love the singer-songwriters of that era as well. It was a time that people were traveling and wanting to spread the word around through music and poetry, through song. It was I think it would have been such a special time to witness or to live through as an artist. And I definitely take a part of that spirit in my creativity.
And how do you find that the spirit of this era, is going through? What do you find that we as artists of 2024 have to say, or have to reflect upon, or have to? What are we going through? Do you find?
At this point in time, is that what you're saying? Sorry.
Yes, at this point in time.
Ooh. At this point in time, I'm trying to get the words for it. It's definitely different to those times, if that in terms of our artistry and our way of expressing it. Um, That's a deep question, Jera. I don't know where to go in terms of if it's worldly or artistically. In the world, it's another time of change. You know, we've got technology coming in, and with music, there's the element of AI that keeps coming up at the moment. Um, yeah, artistry at the moment is good and bad coming through. Yeah,
It's very hard. I think it's very hard to guess, like when we're in the middle of all that's going on. But I
yeah.
find, for me, in a way, there is a lot of, we are exposed to so many influences and so many voices and so much diversity, that at the same time there is space for a lot of new things,
Mm.
but at the same time we almost feel confused about who we are, about
Oh, yes.
what is our voice. I don't
Yeah.
know, at least for me it's kind of, I'm feeling kind of like that. I don't know,
No,
how about you? How do you
def
find it personally?
definitely. I have this constant battle with social media because that is one of our biggest platforms as artists, but it also feels like it's what it takes us away from our art at times because we're constantly um, told to or wanting to create content in order to get a following. It's more about the followers than it is about the talent these days. Not that they're people that have followings don't have talent, but our focus more is on marketing ourselves than it is just creating the art and having the audience be attracted to us. You know, we're part of an algorithm now. With technology, I think some people that maybe in the past weren't, I don't want to use the word talented because I'm not sure I believe in that word, but let's say, I'll give an example. There's an artist that blew up. She had never performed a single show live in her life. She had only just created a TikTok, released a song, and got very popular for her other videos. She had to create a show in private just to practice being a singer. So for me, that was a very strange concept that an artist who is with a 2 million following had to make a practice show because she had never performed live at the age of 24 years old. It's a new age way of, you know, becoming popular as an artist, whereas before you'd have to work the circuit, you'd have to get your following by making something good that people want to come back and see.
It's definitely a changing era with its good sides and bad sides. I think there are lots of interesting points to that, but I think what you said about marketing is essential, and
Mm.
I would gather that with another question. I think as an artist, we have two sides to our career. There is one side which is the skills, the craft, the practicing, the slow, let's say, mastering of your craft, and there is the work that you have to put on your career in terms of marketing, in terms of network connections, uh, and those two things could be related, could not be related. How do you approach those two aspects of your career?
I'm smiling because I'm still learning. I speak to my other friends who are musicians as well. They have their own, you know, technique of making time to market themselves. Some do it just naturally, meaning they're always on their phones, they're always just videoing all their content and doing things. I'm somebody who I need structure, and I also like the elements of spontaneity. So I try and do a blend of both. I try and make some content that hopefully people will like. It would be a song that I'm learning or a song that I'm writing, and upload it and make sure that I'm doing it consistently. And then other times I might go to a jam, somebody's filmed me, it turns out great, and then you end up using that for your own marketing. So you kind of do this blend of purpose purpose built, if that makes sense, content that's there to try and market yourself and get people to come to your gigs and get more followers, people seeing what you do. And then it's a blend of just being spontaneous, showing people what's happening in my life. I think someone taught me that one time. One time I made a separate Instagram, and I was like, I don't think people that are following my music want to see what I'm doing when I was in Brazil or when I was, you know, over in Europe. And one of my mentors, he said to me, people they want to exactly see that as what you're doing as an artist. They want to see what you're doing in your spare time. They want to see what you're eating in Brazil or doing for your workout. That's part of your brand as sorry, it's part of who you are. And that's what sells, you know, the gigs and the shows, is the more people feel close to you and connected to you and as a human being, sometimes more than your art, or a bit of both.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. And I agree. And I find that in a way, it's just as paradoxical, if there is such a word, as what we were discussing before, because we are longing for that connection with people that we find interesting, but at
Mm.
the same time, it's very hard to, not very hard, but sometimes it's hard to tell uh, if it's authentic or if
Yes.
it's, as you said, marketed.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is marketed, but we feel that connection anyway. So
Mm,
it's a very confusing time, I imagine.
very confusing. I even have a friend, she uploads her frequently her content to the point that I feel bombarded by it. And I go, that's that's not what I want to see every day. But I know her original songs off by heart because she's done that. So in a way, it's done exactly what she's wanted it to do. I'm going around the house humming her songs. I'm like, that's why she did this. That's why she keeps uploading like these songs, the content continuously, the similar songs or similar content. It's almost a form of not brainwashing, but yeah, just like it's to show people that she's out there, she's singing it, these her originals, and also getting people to remember her and her songs. And it's worked on me, so I need to try it.
And in regards to that specific part of your career, so you're also a songwriter. So you've
Yes.
written Goddess, you've written LA. I imagine you have written lots of other songs. Uh, how does it work for you? How do you write a song? How is your creative process?
I love these questions and I'm always smiling because I don't know if it's other way artists do it, but one of the biggest ways that I've had, so I call them downloads. I know that sounds like a very woo-woo context or way of saying things, but it's almost like someone downloads you with an idea, whether it's a melody or a song lyric, and it can be at any time, at any place, and you go, oh my god, I gotta quickly like put that on the voice note and continue on. But one of my biggest ways that I've written songs has been driving in the car, just going for long drives and to my dad's place, an hour and a half, or it's been up to Byron Bay. On you're on these long highways, and sometimes I just get these downloads and I go, oh my God, that's a great idea for a song. And then you press record on your phone so you don't forget it, because sometimes you got a really good song idea and you're like, yeah, I'm going to remember that when I get home, and you don't remember it. And you go, oh my God, it's almost like it's in the ethos, it's in the air, and it comes down, and if you don't grab it while it's there, it flies away. So we have to voice note and record it. I that a lot so a lot of the time it's very naturally. It's not often that I sit down and go, I'm going to go write a song today. Like, it's when I'm walking. It's often with movement for some reason, in the car, driving somewhere. It's when you're in that flow state, that it seems to come to me, most of my songs. But I have had experience writing music another way, and it worked really well in a collaborative situation where it was for one of my uni projects. We had to write 4 songs. I was with 3 other artists. They were all instrumentalists. They gave some chords, and I was able to just write on the spot, and we got 4 really good songs. So I was like, oh, so maybe I need to, not maybe, like, I'm very open to collaborating and seeing what comes with other people's chords and different chord structures and musical ideas, because it works as well. It doesn't have to be spontaneous driving in the car as it is sometimes.
And do you have because I find that you have a very good criteria for what is authentic within you. You have a very good filter, and that's why I like you as a person, but also why I love your songs. At least Goddess and LA, which I listened on repeat a few
Yes.
times because we have those recordings. Um, do you find that there is an integration between harmony, rhythm, lyrics that comes to you, or is it sometimes it's just one part and then the other parts will follow along, or you will have to go back to that same inspiration and fill in the blanks, get in other parts, other bits, other pieces of the lyric, or a different harmony to it?
Mm. Mm. It's been a bit of both. So sometimes it's just been verse, chorus, we've got it. And I always get stuck on the bridge, because the bridge is the part that you're meant to change the song. And, it's, it's the point of interest. You got to keep people interested. If you kept going verse, chorus, you need that peak moment and to come back. I often get verse, chorus, and I go, yes, I've got a song. And then I put it away in a file and go on to the next one. And I forget that there's always this bridge part. So the bridge for me is always, in a funny way, it's my bridge to get over. Like it's my hardest part to write in a song. But you were saying, do I sometimes come back and write different parts? I wish I could show you I have a very big, I think it's A5 or A6, like, those big paper artist journals or whatever for actual painters and drawers. And I write my songs in there, and there's so many pages of, here's a lyric idea that I got maybe from one of my voice notes. And then I get stuck on something and go back to it. And it's crazy to see sometimes. There's years in between. Sometimes it's very quick. It's like on the day, or weeks or months. Sometimes I've left songs for years, and I go back and then I'm able to finish them a year or 2 years later. That bridge that I was thinking of, or that part, it's wild. I can't even explain the structure to you. It represents me very well. It's very all over the place. Sometimes very structured, sometimes, a leaf here and a lyric there.
And for you as a person, how is it like when you look at yourself in your artistic process? Are you able to accept the things that go the way you like, and the things that you would like to change, or is it a difficult process?
It's a difficult process. Sometimes you see why. I don't condone what I'm about to say at all, but it's a typical stereotype that parents often don't wish their children to be artists, mainly because it's associated with not making money, or all of those things that I don't believe in. But for me, it's more the mental things that you go through as an artist is, I don't want to say that it's hard, but it's been fascinating to watch from a psychological perspective, because you almost have to be your own therapist constantly to keep yourself in check and keep going with the process, and believe in yourself, and think what you're doing is good and that other people are going to like it. And it's a lot to handle on your own. And unfortunately, we're not always going to get people telling us we're amazing all the time, or that's really good all the time, and nor should we need that, So in a weird way, I feel like, even though I feel it's hard accepting myself as an artist, or what I go through as an artist, it's been one of the biggest, and you would feel this as a actor or artist yourself, one of the biggest personal development courses of your life is being an artist. You're just constantly reviewing the parts of yourself, whether it's through expressing it through song, or whether it's through bringing yourself to that gig that you're feeling nervous about and getting on that stage. I had this epiphany after I did that show that you watched, that I was like, not many people get to do this. And meaning, it's such a vulnerable thing to get up on a stage and expose your voice and be in front of, put on a performance. And some people will never do that in their lifetime because it's terrifying. And we make it not terrifying, and it becomes the normal for us. And that's incredible. It's really special to be an artist. So you go through that battle of like, I don't want to go on the stage today, or like, I'm not really good, my voice isn't good today, or whatever. And then you do the gig, it goes out really well. You feel such a high, and that's your reminder to keep going. So, yeah, the word paradox, I use it constantly in life in general, but as an artist, it's a paradox. It's highs and lows and keeping yourself in check. And I'm lucky that the older I get, the more tools I have to keep myself at bay up here.
Amazing. And that leads us to my next question, which is, one of the verses in LA, one of your songs, says, "Will I see my name on a sunset strip if I'm right? Will I have my own star to prove that I was worth something more than this?" Which I find it's a beautiful way to put what every artist goes through. What inspired that song?
Exactly what you're feeling is what inspired it. So it came during COVID times. I remember, and the song is, when it's released someday, is pretty self-explanatory in the way that I wrote the song when I was in my apartment. And I remember it was just, I had a 2-story kind of apartment, and you're just looking out the window and you're creating your content, especially during COVID time, like we couldn't go out. And I was like, am I just going to be this voice in my apartment room, that nobody sees? Is that my fate kind of thing? Is it just a dream that I'm going to go to America and be this big famous person or something like that? But yeah, that song just poured out of me. And I feel like a lot of artists felt it as well. You just wonder if your name's going to be seen, you're going to see yourself on the TV screen. Are people going to call your name out? We only see this through, I guess, our media outlets, that happens, that you get screaming fans and they want your autograph and all those things. And there was a lot of longing in that song. There was a lot of questioning, if I'm going to be something more than I am, which is just, no name in my apartment, writing songs and making some social media content and hoping my voice is going to be heard. And especially those lyrics, will I see my name on the sunset strip, and will I have my own star to prove? I thought of that Hollywood Walk of Fame where everyone gets a star. And it was kind of like I don't think the word is a metaphor, but it was, will I have my own star to prove that I'm worth more than this? As if that's what you need to prove that you are something in the industry, it's when your name's on the Hollywood strip, then I might be something, So yeah, it just came out of me. It was really real. It's probably one of the realest, one of my favorite songs that I've ever written. And hopefully when it's out someday, other people are going to connect to it, whether they're artists or not. I think it's very common human trait to want to be great at something, or to want to, be great at something, to immerse themselves in something and say that they did it.
I'm sure it's going to be a big hit. It's I think people are waiting to hear that song. It's coming
soon.
Yeah. Your single Goddess was released in 2022 on Spotify, as well as on YouTube, with a fantastic music video. How about Goddess? What inspired you to write that song?
Goddess is like my first baby that I gave birth to. What inspired Goddess was when it was released a long time after it was written. I would say 2 or 3 years after it was written, to be honest. I wrote that song because back in 2016, I went on The Voice. I was at the blind auditions. I thought I was going to get a chair turn. I was 18. I was on top of the world. Got all the way through the different processes to get to the blind auditions. I was the 3rd person on for the day. I'm like, I got this. And I got everyone said no, and I felt somebody took my heart out in that moment. I couldn't believe it. I was in shock. And it was a bit of a messy time after that. I studied music back then, back when I was 18, and I was dropping out of it. I just wanted to be in a band. I just wanted to write and travel and do all that. And I lived with my father at the time, and he wasn't very supportive of my dream. And he said some pretty not nice things that made me feel like I didn't want to do, I wasn't good enough, and all those things that parents make you feel sometimes. And this song was the rebellion of that. It was the rebellion against what he said. So everything in there is about being a powerful woman or man, if you want to relate to it, of being the coolest, sexiest, fiercest version of yourself and being able to do anything. And in a way, I guess that was my therapy. It was the way that I dealt with the way I was feeling. I was like, you know what? Stuff this. I'm going to write a song where all these women feel empowered. And I wrote everything in there that made me feel, alive, like the full moon and leather and lace. And not that I smoke cigarettes, but I was like, this alter ego. I created like an alter ego and expressed it in this song. So that's what created Goddess. I wanted people to feel their best version of themselves and know that they can do everything and nothing can stop them.
And that's interesting, because I find that the songs you write, they come from a very deep and sort of archetypical place. Like it's not that you talk about just shallow things, quite the opposite. You talk about self-worth, you talk about empowerment, you talk about the journey of that each person has to go through to heal, to understand more about themselves, and to feel that they're worthy, that they're worth of attention, love, and etc. And you are also a certified yoga trainer, practitioner, teacher. Does that have anything to do with how that journey of self-awareness, of how you took that journey of self-awareness? Is yoga a part of your internal process?
Yeah, good question. From a young age, I was really drawn to spirituality, yoga, meditation, the health and wellness world. But it wasn't until I was around 18, then I did my yoga training when I was about 19, that I dived into it much deeper. And a lot of the practices, the main thing about the practices attached to yoga is how they regulate the nervous system. The asana practice, which is the one that we typically associate with yoga, the breath work, the different breath work techniques, as well as meditation. We were speaking before about, I said that I'm lucky now that I'm older, or along the years I've accumulated a few tools to help, regulate me as a person in the mind and also the nervous system. And definitely yoga is, or has been, played a massive part in that role. It's the yin to the yang. You want to go on the stage and be a rock star, and you get all that adrenaline, and a lot of people crash and burn. So these are part of the tools that I feel definitely help regulate me. And every morning I do meditation for 20 minutes and I do a breath work practice, just to change the energy at the beginning of the day. Most people want to, we want to pick up our phone and see what's going on, and instantly we're releasing stress and cortisol and comparing ourselves with other people, and you start to feel down immediately. So I was, I talk about COVID and lockdown, but that was a moment we were inside a lot with our thoughts. And I was like, I can't do that. I can't be waking up the first thing in the morning and comparing myself with other people, feeling like shit and not being creative because I've just completely destroyed my mood. So I went back to a lot of my teachings during that time, and I make it a thing every single morning. There's 20 minutes to myself, meditation, breath work. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. You have traveled around the world. You have traveled to many different places. I imagine you've been to Europe, to South America, to Asia, India, and you've met all these different cultures and lifestyles. Have you always been curious about those types of things, cultural differences? Is it something that relates to your music somehow?
Mm. Um, I wasn't I wasn't a world I wasn't a how do I say? I wasn't somebody during my younger years that I thought, oh, I'm going to travel the world or anything like that. It was definitely I met a boyfriend, a guy who became a boyfriend for a little while. That was, and the only way to say it is he was very gypsy spirited and nomadic, and he's the one who gave me this travel bug. He showed me all these places he'd been, and I was very open-minded and very free-spirited already myself, but I was never like, oh, I want to be a world traveler. He definitely sparked that in me, and I started working and saving and traveling. But so yeah, it wasn't like, oh, I was born like with wandering feet. I feel like he gave me the bug, and he even used to make jokes about that. Like, it's like a disease, not a disease, but like a virus. You meet somebody who's traveled a lot, and then you're like, oh, I want to travel the world now. And I feel like I got his travel the world virus. But relating it back to music, traveling the world does many things. It changes your energy from a perspective of when you're feeling stagnant all the time, and you feel like you're going in circles, or you're going to work and then back, and then nothing's inspiring you. Definitely traveling changed my energy and was able to give me energetically new ways of seeing things and experiencing things and seeing other cultures. Like when I went to Spain, I saw flamenco. I fell in love with flamenco. I was 20 years old when I went to Spain. I wasn't there very long, but I just was like, phew. And I've always wanted to one day have that kind of flamenco scale. I think it's a Locrian scale. If don't quote me. That makes that Arabic or Middle Eastern type sound that the flamenco does. Like, so without these traveling experiences, I don't often see a flamenco player in Australia. You know what I mean? And more so, I went to Brazil. Like that, Brazil's an incredible place. I'm so in love with Brazil, as you know. But seeing so many people connected to music there was like, I'd never been anywhere in the world where even if you're not a musician, you support music and the arts. It's your father, your cousin, the person down the road. Everybody consumes music in Brazil. And I was so impressed and so wowed by that. Here I don't know if it's just Australia, but that's my experience here. You've really got to get your friends to go to your show, and like you got to convince them. In Brazil, the whole family is going to show up. You don't even have to ask them. They're asking you when your show is. The culture seemed to, Brazilians consume art much more naturally in their culture. So that was really inspiring, as well as the samba rhythms and the beats and the different instruments. We don't have them a lot in pop music, and it just makes you want to throw like a pandero in sometimes, or just those different beats and sounds.
Amazing. And talking a little bit more about your connection to Brazilian music and to Brazilian culture, because this is a subject that we always go back to, and I find it so interesting because we're
Yes.
always trying to find these differences, these similarities between Australia and Brazil. And in terms of music, other than that regard for music that you find very strong in Brazil, what other similarities or differences can you nominate between Brazil and Australia in terms of music?
Yeah, big differences. I would say Australian music is very much driven by the US and what we would call Western world. I kind of put them together. I don't really see um, us as having our own genre that we associate as Australian music. I would say there's Australian artists, and some of them use our accent in their singing. I personally don't. I use a more American intonation when I write songs and when I sing. But I'm gonna compare it in that way of artists I've seen here. A lot of them have quite a I know I don't want to say US approach, but a lot of the pop artists are in the US. But yeah, just the way music is. Let's start with the rhythms. You guys have polyrhythms. You guys have, you got a dun dun doing one beat on top of another dun dun for those who are not Brazilian. A percussion instrument or a drum going at the same time as another beat over the top of it. Like, it's very thick in terms of texture. Brazilian music, you can have, and in a beautiful way, there's so many textures and so many elements, but they all work really well together in harmony. There's nothing clashing. It's very, yeah. When I've seen it, there seems to be this way that it all just blends in beautifully and works really well. You can have 15 different percussion instruments, as well as a cavaquinho, the little guitar and a bass, and everything all happening at once. But it works. Everyone has their time and place, and it just makes this really beautiful, colorful music. I guess you could say I'm talking about samba, forró. Yeah, it's incredible to watch so many instruments going on the stage, and it works. It's not hurting your ears or clashing. But in comparison to Australian music or the more Western music, I would say we are much more basic and structured in the typical 4/4 or 6/8 way of presenting songs. It's a lot cleaner. It's more vocal focused, as opposed to the music and how the music, like the instruments are making you feel. It's more about the voice and connecting with the singer. These are my own opinions. It could be very different for everyone, but yeah, I would say the textures are much different in comparison to Brazilian music and Australian or Western type pop music.
And something else, you and Lucas are great supporters of the Brazilian community here in Sydney, and I find that many Brazilian musicians know you and know Lucas because of your support for Bondi sessions, or even for when you host jams in your own place. How do you find those jams? Is it something you celebrate? Is it something you got used to it? Because there was no way you're going to get rid of all these Brazilians making noise in your living room.
Yeah, exactly what you said. No, I wasn't used to having. I never had jams. Like, maybe because I never had my own place before. I always lived with a partner, maybe their family. It wasn't my place to invite jams over musicians. But my partner Lucas, he is a percussionist, and plays for a lot of different people and bands and projects and all sorts of things. So he knew a lot of musicians. I wasn't used to it in the beginning, because for me, when I've had jams, it's been like blues type, maybe chords, and then every singer has a go at like making a melody over the top, and it's very different. The jams that I've been to, it's more vocal focused and less instrument focused, where when the jams have been here, we've got the entire samba ensemble going on in our house, and it's loud and it's full of alegria. It's very colorful and very it changes the energy of the house. Like it's incredible. It's by what I said before, but it took me a while to get used to, is sometimes you want to go to sleep and people still want to go on and play like these samba tunes on repeat at 12, 1 o'clock at night, and you're like, they're quite loud, percussion instruments. Whereas if you're just playing guitar, it's nice and soft and you can kind of get away with it and people can go to bed. But yeah, Brazilians, they love to party. They love to have these jams. But I love it too now. That something that I recommend to people now when I see like a gringa or an English speaker dating someone from another culture is learn some of the songs or listen to them, and then the experience becomes so much more fun. When I used to go to them, I'm like, oh my God, so boring. Like, I don't get a chance to sing and I don't know any of the songs, and everyone's having a great time, and all I can do is like dance and like watch them, which is nice as well. But after you do it every weekend, you kind of go, okay. And then when I started learning some of the songs, it's like it makes the experience completely different, either if you're listening and getting to sing along or whether they want you to sing and be part of it, So now that I've learned more of the Brazilian songs, it's a much more pleasurable experience.
And for you, what is the importance of the ovinho for a complete Brazilian music?
Ovinho? I don't know this word.
The little egg.
Oh, the little egg. What was the question again? Sorry.
What is the importance of the little egg for the Brazilian music?
Are you saying quite literally the egg shaker?
I'm just kidding. For the listeners that haven't been to one of the jams at Lucas Place.
Oh, yes. I got you. Yes. Everybody needs to learn how to use the egg shaker. That also changes the jamming experience. Jetta and Eliza have been incredible egg shakers for many of the jams.
I find
really
that
get into it.
There is this thing that everyone gets an instrument, whether you know how to play it or not.
Yes.
So the less experienced you are with music, the less complex is your instrument. So
Yes.
Eliza is she's a good percussionist, but specifically myself, I always get the little egg shaker, which is the one that's you can hardly hear it. So it doesn't make that much of a difference if you don't know how to play.
That's true. If you don't know how to play, you get the egg shaker. That's correct. But Lucas, my partner, he's crazy about rhythm. He will kick anyone off an instrument that's not playing in time or teach them how to use it, because he's very he's on the rhythm, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. You've talked a little bit about how Australian music and the Australian music industry is focused a little bit on the Western market. So in the US, probably Europe as well. And I find that there is this thing about Brazil that since we speak Portuguese, Brazil consumes Portuguese-speaking songs, Portuguese songs. Brazilian music is in Portuguese, so we consume ourselves, we create. So there is a little bit of a protection in the market for Brazilian songs. But when it comes to Australia, since English is the native language of people here in Australia, you get a little bit of competition or a lot of competition from the US and from the UK. Is that something that you take into consideration when you create music, the markets that you are able to conquer, the markets that you're able to sell to?
Yeah. I could be different to how other people work. When I've written music thankfully, a lot of the thankfully, even though I didn't expect my music to come out that way, it's always been quite pop type music, which does fit into the mainstream. But I I really do believe that there's a market for every artist in every way they create. So even if it isn't the mainstream, you're going to find your audience that likes your way of writing songs. For instance, Billie Eilish. Billie Eilish, she took on the scene. She even though she writes pop music, but her voice is very sad. She's been associated to a lot of sad songs and a low way of singing, and people loved it. People still do love it. And it became pop in itself. So I believe that you can attract your audience however you create. But back to your main point of like the English market, yeah, definitely speaking English has created a bigger competition because of that. I agree. I sang in Portuguese in a reel one time, and for me, it almost blew up. Because it was a gringa singing in Portuguese, and Brazil consumes Brazilian, Portuguese music, and that's what attracts them. It's not me singing in English that's going to attract a Portuguese singer. So with singing in English all the time, I do have such a broader competition, but also a broader audience. If I want to look at it, I guess it's the way you want to look at it, right? Again, one of my friends, she's Brazilian, and she's chosen to sing in English, and she's said that because she wants a bigger audience. She doesn't want to sing in Portuguese. She doesn't want to be famous just in Brazil, or popular just in Brazil. She wants to be famous with the, not that English is the international language, but one of the international languages. She wanted her music to be universal. And it was very nice to hear that, because I never thought of it that way, that we have a bit of a universal language that a lot of people a lot of countries consume, whether they speak, English as their first language or not.
Amazing. And what are your next projects, Madelyn? And how can people find you if they want to invite you for a gig, for a concert, for a show?
Yes. Okay. So I have 2 songs that were recorded. The LA song that Jera was talking about, he got to hear an exclusive live performance before it was released. So I have 2 songs coming out this year that I'm very excited for. LA, and the other one, we still haven't found a name for it, because I always called it Drunken Love, but Beyonce has a song called Drunken Love. There's a few very famous artists with a song called Drunken Love. So we're thinking of another name, but it's a very pop type tune, completely different to LA. So it would be nice to see what people prefer or what their responses are with that. Another project I have going on is, because I love Brazilian music and singing in Portuguese, I'm really wanting to put together surprisingly, in Australia, there's enough Brazilians that to make a concert. I would really love to challenge myself and do a Brazilian, all Brazilian set list, and that's one of my plans for more towards the end of the year. So I'll be doing that. I'll also be doing a launch party for my 2 new singles. Again, that should be around August, October. And I will continue to be writing songs. I always go down on Monday to Marble Bar Jams in Sydney. That's somewhere you can see me sing. And yeah, if you want to find me, it's Madelyn Music Official on Instagram. That's my handle. Or Madelyn on Spotify if you want to listen to the song Goddess.
Amazing. I have one final question that I ask all the guests on the Creative Ticket. Mm-hmm. And the question is, what makes you, you?
What makes me, me?
Yes, if someone saw you walking down the street and figured out your energy, what goes through your mind, figured out that person, what would they see?
What would they see? I would say that they would see somebody with an old soul, a deep way of thinking. They would see someone with contrasts. I can be very energetic and also very inward and introverted, as well as extroverted. So you'd see a very colorful girl, a very deep thinker. I'm not going to be the one to do small talk. You see somebody who loves life and loves many things, and that's one of my complexities, that is, I love so many things. I love yoga, I love music, I love to speak Portuguese, sing in Portuguese. I have so much love for life. Yeah, you would see that's what makes me me. I love life. I love learning what soul purpose is, and I love talking about all of those things. And I especially love music, of course.
Amazing. Madelyn, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. It was wonderful talking to you. It was really inspiring, and good luck with your career. I'm a huge fan.
Thank you so much, Jetta. I appreciate it. Yeah, first interview. Woohoo!
Thank you for listening to the Creative Ticket podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please remember to share this with your friends and family and subscribe so you can stay up to date with new episodes. Feel free to reach out to hello@pacificvideo.com.au for feedback and suggestions. We would love to hear from you. Take care.